The phone rang at 2 in the morning. I jolted awake, heart pounding, thinking something terrible had happened. It was my brother Dylan. "Zach, we need to talk about money," he said, voice tight with urgency. 6 months earlier, my grandmother had passed away, leaving me her house in Portland and a savings account with $180,000. I was the only grandchild who had spent her final 4 years caring for her, driving her to appointments, sitting with her through lonely evenings. Dylan was the golden child, the one our parents always bragged about, the one who could do no wrong. He had never cared about my finances before. Why now? Before I tell you what happened next, I would love to know, are you watching from the United States or somewhere else in the world? Drop your location in the comments. If you have ever felt like the invisible child in your family, hit that like button. You are not alone. And subscribe, because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming, not even me. Now, let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. 3 days after that midnight call, Dylan asked me to meet him at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. When I arrived, he was not alone. His fiancée Amber sat beside him, perfectly polished and radiating confidence. Dylan was 28 tall and impeccably dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His smile was the same one that had charmed teachers, coaches, and our parents his entire life. Amber had long blonde hair that fell in perfect waves, flawless makeup, and a diamond engagement ring, so large it caught the light from every angle. Her designer handbag sat on the chair beside her like a status symbol. The atmosphere started warm. Dylan hugged me, clapped my shoulder, and told me how great I looked. We ordered drinks. Dylan got an espresso. Amber requested a vanilla latte with oat milk, and I stuck with plain black coffee. Then Dylan leaned forward, eyes bright with excitement, and started talking about their wedding plans. They were planning to get married at an exclusive resort in Napa Valley next June. 250 guests. A renowned wedding planner, orchestrating every detail. A live band, not a disc jockey, because Amber insisted on authentic music. Fresh flowers imported from Ecuador. A 7-course menu designed by a Michelin-starred chef. A photographer and videographer flying in from Los Angeles to capture every moment. Amber jumped in her voice, rising with enthusiasm as she described her dream wedding dress, a custom design from a boutique in New York that would cost $15,000. Their honeymoon would stretch across 3 weeks in Santorini and the Amalfi Coast. I listened, nodding, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Dylan had not mentioned the point of this meeting yet, but I could feel it coming like a storm on the horizon. "So what do you think?" Dylan asked, grinning. "Sounds amazing," I said carefully. "What is the total cost?" Dylan laughed, waving his hand as if the number was trivial. "Around $250,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. That was more than most people spent on a house down payment. But I kept quiet. This was Dylan and Amber's business, not mine. Then Dylan's expression shifted. He reached across the table and gripped my hand. "Zach, we need your help. We need to borrow some money from your inheritance." The coffee shop noise faded into background static. "Borrow how much?" I asked slowly. Amber leaned in, her voice soft and persuasive. "About $150,000. Just temporarily." My mind reeled. Dylan explained they had already depleted their savings, putting deposits down on the venue and various vendors. Our parents had given Dylan $50,000, but it was not enough. They were short, and the wedding was only 7 months away. Dylan promised they would pay me back after selling their current condo, probably within 2 years. "That is my inheritance from Grandma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She left it to me because I took care of her." Dylan squeezed my hand tighter. "I know, but we are family. Grandma would want us to help each other, right?" Amber added. "Think of it as an investment in our future. You will be part of our happiness." I pulled my hand back. The request felt suffocating. "I am sorry, but I cannot. I am planning to use that money for a down payment on a house." Dylan's smile vanished. Amber's perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together in disappointment. The warmth drained from the table like someone had opened a window in winter. "Mom and Dad said you would help, Dylan," said his voice cooling. "They said you always do the right thing for family." That stung. Our parents had discussed this with Dylan before even asking me. They had assumed I would just hand over my inheritance because Dylan wanted it. I straightened my spine. This is not about family. This is about my future. My answer is no. Dylan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I cannot believe you are being this selfish. After everything our family did for you. Amber rose beside him, silent now, her eyes filled with something between disappointment and contempt. They walked out together, leaving me sitting alone with a cooling cup of coffee and a hollow feeling in my chest. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel too tight. Part of me wondered if I was wrong, if I was being the selfish person Dylan accused me of being. But another part, a quieter part that sounded like my grandmother's voice, reminded me that this was my inheritance earned through years of care and love, not something to be demanded by someone who had never been there. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice trembled with disappointment. Dylan told us you refused to help him. I am very disappointed, Zachary. I tried to explain my plans to buy a house to build my own future, but she cut me off. He has done so much for this family, she said, though she offered no specific examples. He is your only brother. Family should support each other. I took care of Grandma for 4 years, I reminded her gently. Where was Dylan? You can buy a house any time. Dylan's wedding is once in a lifetime. The conversation ended badly. That evening, my father called. His tone was harder, more commanding. Your mother is crying because of you. Dylan is a good son. You should learn from him. Anger flared hot in my chest. I took care of Grandma for 4 years. Where was Dylan then? He was building his career, Dad said flatly. That is what men do. You had free time. I hung up my hands, shaking. Over the following days, the messages came in waves. My mother texted. Dylan sent long messages explaining how stressed he was, how I was ruining his happiness. My Aunt Linda called to tell me I was being unreasonable. Uncle George left a voicemail saying family sticks together. The pressure was relentless, a constant drumbeat of guilt and accusation. Then, 1 week later, Amber showed up at my office. She was waiting in the lobby when I came down for lunch, dressed more casually than before her, makeup lighter, her expression vulnerable. Zach, can we talk just 5 minutes? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We walked to a small park nearby and sat on a bench. Amber's eyes filled with tears. I am so sorry about the coffee shop. We were too aggressive. She told me this wedding was everything she had dreamed of since childhood. Her mother had died last year and would never see her walk down the aisle. I just want to make my late mother proud. I want a wedding she would have loved. She said Dylan was under enormous pressure, not sleeping, terrified they would have to cancel everything. We will pay you back, I promise. With interest. Please, Zach. For a moment I wavered. Maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe family really did mean sacrifice. But then Amber said, Dylan said, if you do not help, he might have to postpone the wedding. His family would be so embarrassed. The manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. This was not about helping family. This was about guilt-tripping me into funding their extravagant plans. Amber, I am sorry about your mother. But my answer is still no. Her tears dried up instantly. Her expression turned cold. You will regret this. She stood and walked away without another word. 3 weeks passed in eerie silence. My family stopped calling, stopped texting. The sudden quiet was both a relief and deeply unsettling. I tried to focus on work, on my normal routine, but the absence of contact gnawed at me. Then on a Friday afternoon I received an email from my bank. Wire transfer request. $150,000. My blood turned to ice. I did not request any transfer. I grabbed my phone and called the bank immediately, asking for the manager, Mr. Harrison. We received documents from you requesting a wire transfer, he explained. The signature matches our records, and there is a notarized authorization letter. I did not send any documents. My voice was too loud. People in my office turned to look. Please hold the transaction, I said. I am coming to the bank right now. I drove like a man possessed, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. At the bank, Mr. Harrison laid out the documents on his desk. There was my signature, or something that looked like it. An authorization letter on official-looking letterhead stated that I voluntarily wanted to transfer $150,000 to Dylan Parker to support his wedding expenses. There was even a notary seal. I examined the signature closely. It looked similar to mine, but the pressure was different. The loop's slightly off. This is not my signature. Mr. Harrison nodded slowly. We did call the phone number on the letter to verify. Someone answered and confirmed the transfer. My stomach dropped. They had thought of everything. The only reason you received that email, Mr. Harrison continued, is because transfers over $100,000 require additional verification. We wanted to make absolutely sure. Thank God for banking protocols. I requested copies of everything and told Mr. Harrison I would be filing a police report. He immediately canceled the transfer and placed a security hold on my account. I walked out of the bank with a folder full of evidence and a heart full of fury. I did not go home. I drove straight to my friend Marcus's law office. Marcus and I had gone to college together. He was a criminal defense attorney, now sharp and uncompromising. I showed him everything. He studied the documents with narrowed eyes, then looked up at me. This is wire fraud and forgery. Both are federal crimes. We spent the next 2 hours analyzing the evidence. Marcus checked the notary seal. It was fake. The notary identification number did not exist in the state system. The phone number on the authorization letter was registered just 1 week ago using a prepaid card. Marcus pulled up all the text messages and emails from Dylan and Amber, printing them out and arranging them in chronological order. Together, they formed a clear pattern of pressure manipulation and escalation. You need to decide, Marcus said quietly. Do you want to press charges or handle this privately? If I reported them to the police, Dylan could go to jail. My family would never forgive me. But if I did nothing, they would think I was weak. They might try again. I want to confront them first, I said. If they do not take responsibility, I will go to the police. That evening, I drove to Dylan and Amber's condo in Capitol Hill. It was a sleek building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a doorman who barely glanced at me. I took the elevator to the 12th floor and knocked hard on their door. Dylan opened it, surprise flickering across his face. Zach, what are you doing here? I pushed past him without waiting for an invitation. Amber was sitting on their expensive leather sofa, a glass of wine in her hand. She looked startled. I threw the folder of documents onto their glass coffee table. Papers scattered across the surface. Want to explain this? Dylan picked up the documents, and I watched the color drain from his face. I do not know what this is. Do not lie to me. You forged my signature to steal my inheritance. Amber set down her wine and stood. We did not steal anything. We were just borrowing. I turned on her. Borrowing with forged documents. That is called fraud. Dylan tried to regain his composure. Look, we were desperate. The wedding deposits were non-refundable. We would have paid you back. I felt something break inside me. You think this is about money. This is about trust. You are my brother. Dylan's face hardened. And you are supposed to be family. But you acted like a stranger. Amber crossed her arms. If you had just helped us from the beginning, none of this would have happened. I stared at them in disbelief. Are you seriously blaming me for your crime? It is not a crime, Dylan said. It is family helping family. My voice dropped to a cold whisper. Family does not forge documents. Family does not steal. I am giving you one chance. Admit what you did, apologize, and cancel this ridiculous wedding plan. Or I am going to the police. Amber laughed sharp and bitter. You will not. You do not have the guts. You have always been the weak one. Dylan nodded. Mom and Dad will never forgive you if you report us. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and realized he felt no remorse. He was only upset that he had been caught. Fine, I said. Have it your way. The next morning, I walked into the police station and asked to speak with someone about fraud. They directed me to Detective Sarah Morrison, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I laid out everything. The forged documents, the fake notary seal, the text messages showing the pattern of pressure and manipulation. Detective Morrison listened carefully, taking notes, asking pointed questions. "This is a very clear case," she said when I finished. "We will contact them within 48 hours." True to her word, Dylan and Amber were called to the station 2 days later for questioning. They were interrogated separately. According to Marcus, who had contacts in the department, Amber broke first. She admitted to creating the forged documents. Dylan knew about it and had agreed to the plan. Dylan tried to deny everything initially, but when shown Amber's statement, he went silent. Their lawyer, hired and paid for by my parents, tried to negotiate. If I dropped the charges, Dylan would apologize and compensate me for my legal fees. I refused. This was going through the legal system. 6 months later, we stood in court. Dylan wore a suit that no longer looked confident, just desperate. Amber stood beside him, her designer clothes replaced with something more modest. Both of them had decided to plead guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. The judge was not sympathetic. Dylan received 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay me $5,000 to cover my legal expenses. Amber got 12 months of probation and 150 hours of community service. Both now had criminal records. The wedding was completely canceled. Venues and vendors refused refunds due to breach of contract. Amber's family, horrified by the scandal, cut off financial support and demanded she and Dylan figure out their lives independently. Dylan lost his job when his employer discovered his criminal record. 3 months after the trial, I heard through Aunt Linda that Dylan and Amber had broken up. Their relationship could not survive the scandal, the financial ruin, or the reality of who they had become. As I left the courthouse after the sentencing, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, but my family was shattered. My parents were furious. My mother called her voice thick with tears. "How could you send your own brother to court? How could he forge my signature and try to steal from me?" I responded calmly. "My father was harsher. You should have just given him the money. Family does not sue family. Family does not commit fraud against family," I said, and hung up. For 3 months, silence. No calls, no messages, no invitations to family dinners. I existed in a strange limbo, cut off from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Then Aunt Linda called. "I am sorry," she said simply. "I was wrong to pressure you. I did not know it would go this far." She told me something I had not known. Before my grandmother died, she had confided in Aunt Linda. "Zachary is the only grandchild who truly loves me, not because of what I can give him. My grandmother had left the inheritance to me deliberately. She knew Dylan was the golden child who would always be taken care of by our parents. She wanted to make sure I had something of my own. Your parents are too proud to admit they were wrong," Aunt Linda said. "But they are starting to realize Dylan is not who they thought he was." 6 months after the trial, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my parents. The handwriting was my mother's, careful and measured. "We may not agree with your decision, but we understand you had to protect yourself. We are sorry we did not see things clearly." It was not a full apology, but it was a beginning. In those early months after the trial, I struggled. I lost sleep replaying events in my mind, asking myself if I had done the right thing. The guilt was suffocating, even though logically, I knew I was the victim. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Helen Brooks. She was patient and insightful, helping me understand that setting boundaries was not selfish, and protecting myself was not betrayal. "You taught your family an important lesson," she said during one session. "Actions have consequences. That is not cruelty. That is reality." Slowly, I began to heal. I reconnected with old friends who had supported me throughout the ordeal. Marcus became more than just my lawyer. He became a close friend. We started hiking together on weekends, long trails, where we could talk about everything or nothing. I rediscovered hobbies I had neglected: photography, cooking, spending time outdoors. I also started volunteering at the nursing home where my grandmother had spent her final months. There were residents there who never received visitors, people who had been forgotten by their families. I spent Saturday afternoons listening to their stories, playing card games, just being present. It was healing in a way I had not expected. I realized my worth was not determined by whether my family accepted me. My value came from living honestly, from treating others with kindness, from standing up for myself when necessary. 1 year after the trial, I used my inheritance to buy a small house in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle. It had a backyard with space for a garden. I planted roses just like my grandmother used to grow. Every time I watered them, I thought of her, of the sacrifices she made, of the love she showed me. I got promoted at work. My life became stable, peaceful in a way it had never been before. As for Dylan, I heard he found a new job, though it paid considerably less than his previous position. He was rebuilding his life slowly, learning hard lessons about consequences and responsibility. We did not speak, but I no longer felt anger when I thought of him. Just a distant sadness for what could have been. I saw my parents occasionally at family gatherings. Our relationship was distant, but civil. We talked about weather, about work, about safe topics that did not touch the wounds still healing beneath the surface. I had learned something important. I did not need their approval to be happy. One evening I sat in my backyard garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The roses were blooming, their fragrance filling the air. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the pain, the long road to recovery. I had learned that family is not about blood. It is about respect, honesty, and boundaries. Being the invisible child had taught me something. The golden child, never learned self-worth, comes from within, not from external approval. I did not regret standing up for myself. I did not regret protecting what was mine. My grandmother's inheritance was not just money. It was her way of telling me, "You deserve good things, Zachary. Do not let anyone take them from you." And you know what? She was right. I did deserve them. And so do you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family even when it hurt? Have you ever been the invisible child? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And do not forget to subscribe for more real stories about life, family, and finding your own path. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that protecting yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, you are worth fighting for.